And good day, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is James. I grew up on Yagara and Turrbal country in present-day Meganjin, which is also known as Brisbane. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country that we're on today and their connection to land, sea and spirit. I offer my respect to their elders past and present and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I would also like to acknowledge the Gadamanud, Gulidjan, Gurai people on whose country this work has been done. Sovereignty has still never been ceded. For those of you that were here last year, you'd be familiar with the work that was happening in the Otways to manage the threat of feral pigs. For those of you who weren't or haven't heard about the program through other avenues, I'll provide a little bit of context. Back in 2019, we received funding to get a feral pig program off the ground with the help of Parks Victoria and DECA. In 2020, there was a massive opportunity to upscale the program and start having a landscape scale impact through the Wild Otways initiative. Of course, we jumped at this opportunity and secured 3 years of feral pig management and research. We partnered with Parks, DECA, Eastern Mar, the CCMA, AgVic, multiple land care groups, Barn Water, Midways, and many more, I could keep going, to deliver a cross-tenure feral pig program. To give you an idea about the scale and scope of the work, on the right you can see some satellite imagery of the Otways and the patchwork of land uses within the 215,000 hectare project area. You can see the National Park in green, the Forest Park in orange, plantations in pink, and various agricultural and private land uses in blue there. When we started up, there was little understanding and no research into how pigs use this landscape, as well as a big gap in the literature on how they behaved, particularly within the endangered cool temperate rainforests. This meant we had a lot to learn and had to determine what would be the most effective in locating, understanding, and ultimately controlling populations across this complex yet inherently connected landscape. At the beginning, our primary focus was to design a novel program, not because we're wildly innovative, but because we absolutely refused to design a program limited to what had failed in so many other areas in the past, such as tenure-bound approaches, a lack of coordination, and insufficient knowledge backing management actions. We're able to do this because we have the brains of researchers, the know-how of land managers, and realistically, an unhealthy amount of determination. This led to a program that merges ecological methods and data with practical and effective management techniques. Our program ultimately consisted of 3 key elements: monitoring and research, stakeholder engagement and collaboration, and applying effective management tools, particularly ones that were suited to the Otways landscape. For monitoring, we fitted GPS tracking collars to individuals, deployed camera grids, and undertook eDNA waterway sampling. We hosted workshops with communities and agencies, coordinated strategic approaches, and upskilled motivated people. We then applied control tools, which were of course coupled with further monitoring and surveillance. Our go-to tool was remotely operated cage traps hooked up to a hog eye system. This in turn allowed us to live stream video of the trap sites and remotely drop the gate from the comfort of our own homes. It's crucial to have this ability to remotely drop the trap so we can make sure we remove the entire pigs in one go rather than a few here and a few there, which can create trap-shy individuals and make management further down the line significantly harder. From our pre- and post-control monitoring data, we were able to illustrate the effects that our management had on feral pig populations. I won't go into this too deeply, but in summary, we saw over a 95% reduction within our target areas. This pie chart here represents the use of various control tools. As you can see, we predominantly relied on cage trapping. making up 98% of the pigs, and only used a bait box once in a remote location, and only ground shot trap shy pigs on 2 separate occasions. And we certainly wouldn't have been able to achieve this without the collaboration and support from key government agencies, industry, and the community. As our pig program moved into its next phase, we're navigating new funding and capacity challenges. We're still trying to find ways we are still finding ways to continue to be effective within the region. Leveraging insights from our previous research on feral pigs and our established relationships with stakeholders, we've continued to have a focused and efficient approach. GPS collar data and camera grid data continue to provide crucial insights into feral pig behaviour, movement and habitat preferences, informing current monitoring and surveillance strategies. The in-kind support and goodwill offered from DECA and Parks Victoria has also gone a really long way in helping us achieve the coverage we need to get across this landscape. I want to come back to the first key program element I mentioned, monitoring, and why it's so vital. Monitoring offers invaluable benefits that can provide essential data on species distribution, their habit, and the areas they impact. This data has been crucial for us by not only for identifying where pigs are present, but also for confirming where they aren't. Negative data points, such as locations where cameras are deployed and no pigs are detected, are just as important as locations where they are, especially if pigs have been known to be there in the past. After repeated monitoring, they can help us prove that pigs are absent from these areas, allowing us to refine our efforts and focus resources in other parts of the landscape. Monitoring also enables us to assess the impact of our control measures, offering clear evidence of our program's effectiveness and guiding us on whether our strategies are working or whether they're not. Additionally, this information gathered on non-target species, both native and invasive, can provide valuable insights that inform other management and conservation efforts, adding value to the landscape that goes beyond our immediate project. To summarise, as a quote I once heard puts it, if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, then what does it mean to do the same thing over and over again and not even know the result? This is why we monitor, to ensure we understand the impacts we're having and to make informed, effective decisions. With that in mind, let me show you a few graphs. Here's a graph from one of our focal areas where we undertook intensive monitoring. In this area, we deployed 301 cameras for a cumulative total of 19,304 trap nights. To put that into perspective, that's about 52.8 years. There's quite a bit to unpack here, so bear with me. The graph illustrates the amount of effort in the blue bars compared to the number of pigs controlled, the red line, over a period of 42 months, which is then separated into 14 3-month blocks down on the bottom axis. I've quantified efforts into hours by the assumption that each site takes 1 hour to service per 7 days it's deployed, whether that be feeding out, changing batteries, checking images, or physically walking into the site. I haven't taken into account other factors such as data analysis, stakeholder engagement, travel time, or just general admin. Okay, so hopefully you're still with me. Firstly, I want to draw your attention to the blocks where we deployed the camera grids, specifically blocks 3, 7, and 11, which show an interesting trend. As I've mentioned, the camera grids were instrumental in providing us with data, but their impact was not immediate. This delayed effect means that while cameras helped us identify where pig populations were, the benefit in terms of control only became apparent in subsequent blocks. In blocks 4 through to 6, we saw a noticeable increase in the number of pigs controlled. For example, in block 6, with 100 hours of effort, we controlled 18 pigs, bringing that total to 40. This spike illustrates the impact of the camera grid, providing valuable insights that allowed us to target our approach more effectively, even with a relatively average amount of effort. However, in periods 7 and 11, where we deployed repeat camera grids, so cameras in the same location in areas that we've treated, we observed a shift. Despite having significant effort, the number of pigs controlled was relatively low. This indicated that while the camera grids are still out there collecting data, the number of pigs in the landscape were decreasing, and we weren't getting the same return on effort when it came to the number of pigs being controlled. Although this may seem negative at first glance, the plateauing of the red line, regardless of a change in effort, is actually an incredibly positive sign. If the line continued to rise, then we'd know that we're not having an impact on the population at all. But what this is saying is that there's ultimately less animals out there to control. Here's another graph from one of our other focal areas where you can see a similar trend. This time, the camera grids were deployed in blocks 2 and 6. The data from blocks 3 through to 6 shows a noticeable increase in the total pigs controlled, once again following the camera grid. In period 3, with 40 hours of effort, we controlled 41 pigs, bringing that total up to 86. Periods 4 and 5 saw a continuation of this, controlling a further 43 pigs. After the second camera grid deployment, you can see a slight rise in pigs controlled, but then a strong plateau, another positive sign that what we're doing is actually having an effect. A few weeks ago, I was at the Australasian Vertebrate Pest Conference, where a recurring theme emerged from the presentations: the need to shift our focus from simply counting the number of feral animals removed to evaluating the overall impact of our efforts. Although eliminating the last few individuals might require significantly more effort, it's clear the long-term benefits far outweigh the costs of maintaining reactive and sporadic management. This made me reflect on the Otways feral pig program and the importance of intensifying our efforts to keep the pig populations under control. The best time to act is ultimately now. Thankfully, we have the funding for one more year through the Otways Biodiversity Protection Project. While this will help us keep a lid on feral pigs across the landscape, as large and diverse as the Otways, we must remain vigilant. The threat still remains, with increasing feral pig reports beyond our focal areas and the potential for illegal translocations and releases. It really wouldn't take long for them to reinvade again. But despite these challenges, we'll keep persisting with a continued commitment to our management model and getting feral pigs out of the Otways once and for all. Thank you so much for listening, and a big thank you to all the collaborators and co-contributors on this work. Cheers.